we got a question from a listener named Jordan. I don't know if he wants his last name mentioned, but I thought it was pretty interesting. So he says, how does Yellowstone fit into your conception of human flourishing and obviously nature preserves in general? The abundance of natural resources could assuredly benefit human flourishing, and yet I think the most cynical utilitarian recognizes the intangible yet powerful experience humans have interacting with untouched beauty of nature, or I'm sorry, the untouched beauty of the pastoral. How do you guys approach this concept? Is there room for agreement with the Greens in this regard? Alex says a little bit about this kind of thing in the moral case for fossil fuels, but the kind of short version is the way that we think about it, or at least I'll speak for myself from a policy view, is freedom. That on a free market, people will have incentives to put things to their most valuable use. And as Jordan points out, natural beauty is a tremendous value. Although I should point out, it's something that has to be made actually valuable to human beings. Like a remote middle of nowhere forest is not valuable to many people, but if you build roads to it and you have, an infrastructure where people can camp and dispose of garbage and things like that, like they can be tremendously valuable. And so there's a huge economic incentive to use them for that value rather than something that for that piece of land would be way lower value. Like there'd be no reason to, stick a Walmart in the middle of the Grand Canyon versus having it there for its natural beauty. And the same thing from Yellowstone. So I think in some cases, yeah, you wouldn't mine or drill in those areas at all. But I think what you would also see is it can be done in unobtrusive ways in many cases. So I do not equate natural beauty and preserving natural beauty with zero sign of human life. Like I think this idea that like, oh my gosh, I saw this little piece of metal in the ground and that, that completely wiped out the value. That is all from an anti-human perspective. I think that in most cases, or at least in many cases, we would be able to have both. That is, you'd be able to have both the resource abundance and the natural beauty. And this gets to why I think there's no room for agreement with the Greens. That is not how they view it, because they do not want to preserve natural beauty for human beings. They want to protect wilderness from human beings. And so they oppose most of the things that would allow us to enjoy natural beauty. It's like they don't want roads that lead into these places. And even wider than that, like the only reason that we can enjoy natural beauty is precisely because of the unnatural abundance from fossil fueled civilization that they want to oppose. And so that there's no commonality here, because the fundamental is not, are some places good for natural beauty and should they be used for that purpose? The fundamental is that are you trying to do what's best for human life, including enabling people to enjoy natural beauty, or do you oppose human life? And so what you say is, no, we can't touch nature in any way, or at most I'll compromise and fine, you can put in a couple ranger stations or something. But there's a fundamental conflict in values that I don't think can be bridged. And if all the Greens were trying to do is keep, Yellowstone a place where people could enjoy themselves, like I don't think that we would be doing this podcast week after week. Like, that might be grounds for disagreement in certain cases, but what they want to do is that they want to turn all of the world into a nature preserve and not allow any industrial activity. And using it's a smoke screen to use, oh well, allowing people to transform nature means we wouldn't have Yellowstone or the Grand Canyon. It's just absolutely not true. Stefan, one thing I did want to mention, um, a guy named John Hersey wrote an article for a publication called The Objective Standard called Liberating Public Lands that I helped a little bit with the editing of, and I think it covers this issue in a pretty good way. So that is another resource in addition to Alex's book to look into. Any thoughts, Stefan?
Yeah, I think Alex mentioned on a previous Power Hour, in the context of human flourishing, there's sort of the material flourishing part and there's a spiritual flourishing part. So, of course, we want good food and good medical services and all the material stuff that we need to live. But of course, enjoying nature is part of spiritual satisfaction that we can get out of life, and this is certainly a human need as well. And so I agree, get the government out of this, because for the same reason that the government bureaucrat doesn't know what kind of car propulsion system I need, the government doesn't know what kind of recreational beautiful patch of land I want. But yeah, this is like preserving a beautiful part of nature for human enjoyment, of course, is part of human flourishing and is sort of enabled by a high energy, sophisticated, productive civilization. So in the past, our ancestors and today poor people on the planet have to destroy parts of their surroundings that are very beautiful for the only reason that it's either destroying that and surviving, or not surviving. Right? And then the choice is pretty clear: you will cut down every piece of forest and kill every animal inside. And so in a very wealthy and productive society, you can afford not to do that. So one of the things that the coal industry did was saving European forests, and to some extent American forests. So it's not like opposing things like either or. It's, yeah, you want a high energy, high tech civilization in order to be able to preserve, patches of nature that you enjoy for human flourishing purposes.